Hello everybody, and welcome to another weekly chat where I'm going to talk about what I've read, what I'm currently reading, what my plans are for this next week, and of course a crafting update because that's what I care about right now. So this past week was very busy and I am still not sufficiently recovered after this weekend. I'm feeling very tired and it's quite late today, so I am not super high energy. We're gonna do this relatively quick and I plan on taking it as easy as possible over the next week because I don't like feeling exhausted. I finished one book this past week. I did a lot of reading, but I was starting a lot of books to figure out if I really liked them or not. I was reading from big chunky things, so there was a lot of reading but not a lot of finishing. The one book that I did finish is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is her latest novel. It is a YA romance, and I buddy read this with Shannon from That's So Poe, and I adored this book. It was so good. About the only negative thing I might say about this is that Talia Hibbert does tend to have more like third act breakup angst in her romance novels than I love all the time, but here it wasn't too bad and it did not detract from my enjoyment of the book. So basically this is an enemies to lovers story of two teenagers who are getting ready to move on to university. It's set in the UK. I don't understand the school system there, but whatever. They are basically like they used to be friends and then they had a falling out and they're absolute enemies now, but then they kind of get thrown together when they're both competing for a scholarship, and they're like that sort of forced proximity thing that makes them, it really makes them confront their feelings about each other. Why do they dislike each other, and did they have a misunderstanding in the past? Can they get, past that? I just really enjoyed it, and I spent a lot of time talking with Shannon about how I thought this was believable. We both agreed there was a lot of really good modeling for just how these teenagers are working through their emotions, how their relationships with their families were and everything. It was just really, really wonderful. I could talk for a long time about all the things I really enjoyed from this, but yeah. I wasn't quite sure how a teenage romance would work because my experience with Hibbert's work has always been adult romance and got some steamy bits in it. This definitely is not got graphic sex or anything, and there's kissing and that's pretty much it. It's much more emotional and coming of age and two young people like really coming to grips with how they feel about their lives and their futures and their families and everything. So very, very enjoyable. I want more like this. I cannot wait for the next Talia Hibbert novel. Now moving on to what I am currently reading. Yes, I am still reading Godel, Escher, Bach, this big chunky book. I'm still making really good progress. I think as of today, I am at page 240. So I am not quite reading 20 pages a day, but close enough. I'm still way ahead of my original schedule. I'm really only committing to about 10 pages per day of this. It is definitely easier for me to sit down and read like an entire chapter in one go though. I cannot describe a lot of the content of this book, especially as it gets more and more into number theory and this whole like TNT thing. Does that make any sense to you? Yeah, I'm not trying to understand this in every detail. I'm mostly trusting that I will try to get the gist and Hofstadter will explain the bits or point out the bits that are really important to the argument that he is ultimately building up to. So I am enjoying the book, but I think I have realized the limits of mathematical, theoretical stuff that I am interested in, like knowing the nitty-gritty details of. And then next up, like I said, I've been starting so many books because I've just been checking things out from the library and seeing what I'm really interested in, getting a lot of stuff off of my TBR that I'm no longer keen to read. So I have a huge stack of books that I have started reading, and this next week I need to sit down and actually like read some of the ones that I have become very excited about. So the first thing that I want to make a good progress on this week is The Half-Life of Valery K by Natasha Pulley. This is something I need to read for book club, basically. I need to read it for this month, so it is a high priority for that. I've only read the first chapter, and I don't really know what this book is about, but I feel like it might be like alternate timeline science fiction or something. We'll see. I'll figure out more as I get into it, because I just jumped in completely blind with that particular book. I did start both of the Silvia Moreno-Garcia novels that I talked about last week, and the one that I want to focus on right now is Signal to Noise, because it's the one that just really appealed to me in the moment. So this one I actually want to read in its entirety this week. I know I can. I can probably finish 2 books this next week, so this will be one that I really commit to trying to finish. I have a short poetry collection called The Sea and the Bells by Pablo Neruda, which I have out from Interlibrary Loan, and this one I will probably also finish this coming week because it is so short. It is a bilingual Spanish-English edition of this poetry collection, and I am taking my time with it because I'm trying to actually read all the poems in Spanish before I read the English translations. Just some practice, but also, you know, reading Neruda in the original language is probably a good idea. And then I did mention before that I had started reading The Soul of an Octopus by Saad Montgomery, and this is probably the other book that I would like to really buckle down and finish over the coming week. I have one other thing on the go right now, which is An Immense World by Ed Yong. This is an audiobook. It's narrated by Ed Yong himself, I believe, and I really like his reading voice. I have been super enjoying this audiobook, and I will probably blast through it. I'm about 40% of the way through, and how quickly I finish is just going to depend on what sort of audiobook time I have in the evenings this coming week, but I am so enjoying this book. It is a nonfiction book about what's the word? The Umwelt, basically the perceptual worlds of other species. What are the senses of other species like? What can we determine about how they experience the world, and how it is so incredibly different from our own, and how difficult it is for us as humans to even conceive of how, you know, even dogs actually see the world, or how other animals smell the world or something. We tend to view all other species through the importance we place on our own senses, and haven't until very recently, it seems, realized that the way that we experience the world is just one tiny, tiny slice of the possibilities out there. So I think this topic is really fascinating. I can't say that I was super interested in other species' senses until I picked this up, but I wanted to read it because it's by Ed Yong, and I love his science writing. One of the things that I will just always praise him for is that he cites so many women researchers, and I believe he's written an article on how and why he started doing that. Actually, I should probably try to dig it up again because it was a really interesting article. So when I read his science writing, it's not like, oh my god, he's only talking to women when he does his research, but it's that he makes it seem effortless to go out and find a diversity of sources and to speak to women in fields as well as their male colleagues, and it's just wonderful when you read something like this and then you go to some other science nonfiction and you realize how male dominated it is. It hurts a little bit. So yeah, I thoroughly am enjoying this audiobook, and I highly recommend his previous book, which is called I Contain Multitudes. It is also fantastic. So that is it for most of my reading plans. Oh, I will probably start one other thing. I'm going to be reading the Spanish translation of Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I'm going to be buddy reading this with Shannon from That's So Po as well. It's probably going to be a really slow buddy read though, because it's going to be probably the most advanced thing I've ever tried to read in Spanish, so we're just going to take it a little bit at a time, and I need to start that today to get going on it, so that should be it, but that one's going to take a while. And everything else that I've been up to has been craft related pretty much. So let's do a quick show and tell. Last week I talked about how I was finishing up one of my spinning projects, and that is this thing. This is a 2-ply blue-faced Leicester wool yarn, and it's so pretty. It came out better than I expected it to, given that it is a very quick and dirty spin, but yeah, it came out well. So I plan on pairing this with a very, very light gray alpaca floofy yarn to try to knit a velvet mirror cowl by Andrea Mowry, because I thought the color changing and like striping qualities of this yarn would look really cool in that pattern. So I need to do a quick swatch to see if I can get anywhere near gauge. I haven't measured this yarn yet, so I don't actually know what weight it is. I'm going to guess that it is a like heavy sport weight yarn, but we'll see if that's decent for this project. And then I have started my other spinning project that I mentioned last time as well. So last time I had showed you one of these bats. This is the second one that I haven't taken apart yet, but I did spin the first bat. So I have my first singles, and while I was spinning this, I completely changed my mind about how I want to ply the yarn, which means I'm not going to get it done right away, because basically I want a traditional 3-ply, but I'm going to get 2 plies out of the bats, so I need more fiber for a 3rd ply, and I don't have that. So I got to think about how I'm going to do that, but I'm just very excited about doing the traditional 3-ply. I could chain ply it to preserve the gradient, but I kind of want some more complexity than just that, so we'll see where that goes. And then my knitting project this past week, I have started new projects, and I am excited about them even though they're simple. So I have cast on a black cardigan. It's very difficult to see because it's all black. This is the Felix cardigan by Amy Christophers. I plan on making the Felix pullover, but I had ripped out this black acrylic yarn from another cardigan that I did not want to finish. I didn't have enough yarn for it. Reasons. So I am repurposing the yarn for a different cardigan project, and it's kind of a test piece to see how I feel about modifying the pattern to work at a different gauge, because it's a very quick knit. I think the pattern says, like, recommends you work on size 10 needles or something, but my yarn isn't good for that gauge, so I'm knitting more densely. And it's coming out okay, but mostly I'm curious if the sizing will work out fine. And if it does, then when I move on to doing a hand-spun Felix pullover, I will have some information about that. So that is my ongoing cardigan project, and it should be a really quick knit. I mean, I've already split for the sleeves, and it's just stockinette now. And oh yeah, more books, because one of these is craft related. I'm going out of order, but whatever. Yesterday, on Saturday, I went to the yarn store and I did order my loom, and I got all of the extra bits, shuttles, bobbins, sleigh hooks, etc. that I was gonna need. I won't have my loom for a while. I suspect I'll get it in February, but it's just a lot of stuff is slowed down with the manufacturers and stuff. So while I'm waiting on the loom to actually arrive to me, I thought I should get all the stuff for it. So I did get some books. I got Weaving for Beginners by Peggy Osterkamp, which was recommended to me when I was at the yarn store. Like, this is a really good one. It'll give you everything you need for the basics. So I have this, and then I also picked up the Handweaver's Pattern Directory by Dixon, which I think is a pretty common one. It's literally just patterns for a 4-harness loom, which is what I have on order. So I will be looking through those while I am waiting. And then while I was at the yarn store, I was in the cool town that has an indie bookstore, and I got some books, which means my owned TBR that I want to get down to 12 books or whatever it was is now at 38. Okay, 37 and a half, because I've made good progress on GEB, but so I got Kundo Wakes Up by Saad Hossain. I read the first novella that this is kind of connected to last year, and I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to get the other one, and I ended up buying it because none of my libraries would get it when I recommended it to them, so I bought that. I also got Growing Up Weightless by John M. Ford because I saw it, and I do like these Tor Essentials editions. I don't see them in person that much, but they are really nice paperbacks. I think that this title is now out in the SF Masterworks line as well, and I was very torn about which one to get, but this one I saw in person, so I got it, and I really need to buckle down and read the John M. Ford novels that I have now, because I own like 3, maybe 4 of them, and I haven't actually read any of them yet. I also got 2 nonfiction books. I got Inciting Joy, essays by Ross Gay. I read his other essay collection. Did I read it last year? Or maybe it was the year before that. Which one was it? The Book of Delights, that was it, which I super, super loved. So when I heard that he had the second essay collection out, I was like, I'm gonna buy a copy. I just know I'm gonna really enjoy it. And then lastly, my impulse purchase is a book called Fabric, which was very appropriate considering I had bought a loom like an hour before I picked this up. So this is Fabric, The Hidden History of the Material World by Victoria Finley. And it is, yeah, I guess all about the history of fabric and weaving and the importance of that to probably civilization and the economy and all of that stuff. I have read 2 other books kind of along this topic. Cassia St. Clair's The Golden Thread, which was decent, but kind of basic, I think, about the history of textiles. And I also read The Fabric of Civilization. I cannot remember the author's name, Virginia Postrel? I think so, which I really enjoyed, and that was much more about the importance of textiles in technological innovation and civilization. So really enjoyed that one, and this is a chunky book. This is, okay, including the index, it's more than 500 pages, so this will count for my 1 big book a month challenge. Yay! So that is that. This is more than enough to keep me busy for quite some time. So yeah, I will check in next week to let you know what I have read. Hopefully I will have read more than 1 book to talk to you about. And until then, bye.